story of the two monks. They're traveling on a long and arduous journey to a distant monastery in search of enlightenment. And along the way, come to a fast-flowing river. They see a woman standing there. She's distressed. She knows she can't get across without their help. As soon as she sees the monks, she approaches them and asks them to help her get across the river. Without hesitation, one of the monks picks her up and puts her on his back and carries her across the river and gently places her on the opposite side of the bank. She thanks the monk and continues on her way, and the monks continue on their way. But they walk for several hours in silence. And finally, the second monk says to the first monk in a tone of disbelief, "Brother, we took a vow of celibacy. We're not even allowed to touch a woman, yet you carried the woman across the river." The monk who helped the woman replied, "Brother, I put her down on the other side of the bank hours ago. You brought her all the way with you to the monastery. When it's over, let it go. Once you've processed a negative experience, let it go."
Welcome to Magic Academy podcast. Today with us is Suzy. Hi. She has an organizational psychology PhD from Columbia University. She's been serving as an executive in Fortune 20 tech giant companies, leading their teams to overcome their negative inner talk and bring the best out into the impact of the world. And in this conversation, we will focus on the 3C strategies that mentioned in her book, The Head of Mental. And following these 3-step strategies, we hope this conversation provides you with a healing space where you can catch your negative self-inner talk, confront it with deep passion and love, and then change it with mini rituals, with visualizations, with practical strategies that will really help you. And hopefully, through this conversation, one at a time, we're able to shift the collective consciousness from criticize or negative perspective into more of a supportive and encouraging and compassionate. Beep, beep, beep. In front of you lands a spaceship, and out walks a friendly alien. If the alien walks. If you were to use one word, one sound, or one movement to invite the alien to play, what would that be?
I would say, "Welcome," with a big smile on my face.
Welcome.
Well, but a big smile, because smiles matter. And
Yeah.
smiles send strong messages to people. And that'd be a
Yes,
way
and I
to
can
say,
sense a sense of heart opening. Yes.
yes, for sure.
Beautiful. So, your upcoming book, The Head of Mentals. Head Mentals. Why this book?
You know, I've got 2 co-authors. We've been all coaching leaders for many years, and we all had the same experience of everyone's kind of doubting themselves all the time. And it's like people have this voice in their heads that says, "You're not good enough. You're not smart enough to be in this job. You don't have the patience to lead this team." And in fact, it's a very common phenomenon. And as a social psychologist, for me, it was exciting to really dig into where all this is coming from and how we can take it away, because it's very debilitating for leaders and for their teams, because a leader might be having a conversation with him or herself, but the reality is that that conversation leaks to the team. If your team sees your tone being negative, your body language being negative, you being indecisive and so on, you're going to pick that up and have those same challenges in themselves. You know, when your voice is full of fear, self-doubt, hesitation, they're going to mirror that. That's a huge problem for businesses today.
Beautiful. And also, as leaders, we see there are leaders who have titles, there are leaders who play as team members. How do you see the definition of leaders?
To me, a leader is someone who creates followership, whether it's by job title or position in an organization or charisma or relationships. But a leader is someone that people want to follow. You know, one of my favorite definitions of leadership is telling someone to go to hell and they look forward to the trip. You know, so it's someone that people want to engage with, be connected with, walk alongside with. And those people need to have a mindful of possibilities and opportunities and gratitude, rather than that we can't get it done, or it's too late, or there's not enough money, to think about what we can do, you know? Because there's always a way. There's always a way.
There's always a way. Yes, there's always a way. That's beautiful. So let's dive into. Go ahead. Sorry.
For me, if the door is closed, I'll look for a window. If the window is locked, then I'll probably climb up on the roof and see if I can get down the chimney. If I can't get down the chimney, then I'm going to come down and like take an axe and carve my way in. Because if something's important, I think you need to find a way to get it done if you're sure that it's the right thing to be doing. And that's called agency, right? That's self-leadership, taking responsibility for getting done what you need to get done. My mom always used to say, you've got to do what you've got to do, and there's no point in talking about it. I think that's true. So you just have to find a way, right?
Yeah. I think the first part is to determine if this is the right path to go.
Exactly.
And then once that's determined, then we will do whatever it takes. It's
exactly.
Just action, massive action.
And bringing people along with you and making sure that they still want to come on the trip.
Yeah, because they will benefit. Because otherwise, why this trip at all? There must be something collectively that really benefit and elevate and transform.
Exactly. That's where the vision comes in, right? Creating a vision that people can see.
Beautiful. Shaping the future together feels like we're creating that reality together. Beautiful.
One of my favorite authors is Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. He wrote The Little Prince. And he said something to the effect of, if you want a group of men to build a ship, don't take them into the woods and have them start cutting down trees. Take them to the shoreline and have them visualize the horizon. Show them what's possible, where that ship is going to take them. And then they'll figure out how to cut the trees.
That's also holding space of pure potential, holding space of pure possibility.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
With that vision and mission and big picture in mind, now let's kind of dive back into the tangibles. And so in your book, Head of Mental, you've mentioned the strategy of the 3C. So the first, can you share with us the core of your the 3C strategy?
It's basically cognitive behavioral therapy. It's a process that was created by a psychologist named Alan Beck in the 1960s. And it's simple but not easy, right?
Yeah.
The first step is when you hear something negative in your mind, you've got to catch yourself saying that unhelpful message to yourself. You've got to catch it. Once you catch it, you've got to interrogate it. Where's it coming from? Is it true? What evidence do you have to support it? Or is it some leftover nonsense from your childhood, something that happened to you on the playground or something your parents did to you that really has nothing to do with your life today? And 9 times out of 10, when you confront it, you'll discover that it's actually not based in reality. And then the real trick, the best part is to change the narrative, to reframe it, to change it, right? So you might say, I can't do this yet, but I can learn. I didn't knock this ball out of the park today, but with some more practice, next time I will. So it's a very simple 3-step process, but it takes a lot of time first to catch things, right? And to me, the trick in catching things is listening to your body. Because when I'm getting a negative message, I feel it in my stomach. My stomach gets tight. My shoulders get tense. So if I'm into something, I might not realize it until I realize I've got a pit in my stomach, right? I have to stop and say, wait a minute, what's going on? What am I hearing myself say? It's going to get me off track.
From a neuroscientific perspective, why do we have all those negative feelings and negative thoughts at the first place? Like, why are we made this way? Why do they exist at all?
Interesting thing, Gianna, is that they're hardwired. It's left over from when we lived in, thousands of years ago, when we had to worry about that sound in the night, the crack of the twig, that some animal or unfriendly neighbor might be coming to hurt you. So the way our brains work, senses come in through the brain stem at the base of your skull, and they have to come through the limbic system, which is in the middle of your brain, and that controls your emotions, right? That's what the amygdala is. And anytime you get wired up, anytime that you're feeling a heightened stress response, your brain is taken over by this fight, flight, or freeze experience. It's just because this thought gets to your emotions and they react. They're trying to keep you safe, trying to help you run from the tiger that might be chasing you in a minute. And in order to get past the limbic system, it's got to get into the frontal cortex, which is your logic and your rational part. But it has to pass through the emotions to get there, right? And often the emotions stop along
everything.
The way. And once you get into that fight, fright, or freeze state, it's really hard to get out.
So are you implying that those negative self-talk, like say, oh, you're not good enough, you're not patient enough, and are associated with this amygdala hijack when we perceive things as a threat, or it will happen even if there's no threat. It's just like default.
Well, any sense that comes in at the back. It has to go through the limbic system. So it comes from negative self-talk comes from a variety of sources. Internalized criticism, past experience. And I had a sister who was so mean to me. I mean, so mean to me. And I think when I'm having negative thoughts, it's often my sister saying, you're just a brat. You're just a brat. Paris, and particularly today with social media, where I'm sitting here talking to you, but my friends are riding around in beautiful cars and, this need to be perfect. There's so many sources of negative self-talk, but they come from your emotions, not from your logic, right?
From here, from
here, not from here.
So how can we, I think it's so easy to catch it though. Like whenever there are negative voices that's talking in our mind, we always know it's like, oh, okay, Gianni, you again. So are there ways, if through the science, the neuroscience, the psychology, the social science, whatever the science aspect, that can that negative voice be cured at all for good? Or are we destined to just be wrestling with this voice for all of our lives?
I think most of us at some point in our lives will have to wrestle with it. Not everyone every day, for sure. I mean, I don't have a monster every day, but there are times when I do. And I think there are things when I feel the monster coming on. One of the things that works so well, and it's so simple, is just this deep belly breathing. Put your hand on your belly. And that deep belly breathing sends an all safe signal to your body. It says, okay, Suzy, everything's okay. You can relax now.
So this would be a very easy, just in time
Exactly.
strategy to do that.
Exactly.
Are there, so if every day, every moment that we go through life and we hear those negative talk coming back, and then we keep doing this, and would you say that after several years of consistently practicing, this cycle can be broken and we can be free from negative talk? Or do we have to keep just doing this?
I can't speak for all
Forever.
humanity, but certainly I would say for me, 90% of the time, I don't have a monster in my mind. I don't. But there are certain situations that trigger me that make me think, gosh, it's going to happen again, And those are the times where I have to catch myself and say, wait a minute, where's that coming from? Is it based in fact? Or is it just is it my sister haunting me yet again? I don't know anyone who's free of all negative thoughts forever. Maybe some people are seriously into Buddhism, which is so focused on non-attachment. And I think people of deep faith, of any kind of a faith, perhaps. But I think most of us at some point have things that trigger us, right, Gianni?
Yes.
And the trick is when you do get triggered, to nip it in the bud, to stop it and say, wait a minute, I don't have to go there. That isn't me. I am good enough. I am enough. I am enough. And I don't have to be perfect. I can just be human.
It's perfect. No one is perfect.
It's enough to be human, right? I can be human.
Yes.
And I'll make mistakes and I will recover from them.
Yes. And when you're talking about the triggers, you mentioned about family members and past experiences, do you think the previous family experiences, the relationship between people that we love and we live together, our parents, our papa, our mama, our sister, our brother, our uncle and auntie, and our classmates when we were little, all that, our teachers when we grow up, like all that serve as a potential triggering?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Both positive and negative, right? Both
Both
positive and negative.
Yes.
I have a lot of wonderful memories of my family as well.
Yes.
And teachers and friends.
Yeah. Same here. And sometimes I think our mind somehow has this gravity that tends to pull us away from the focal point of the beautiful, the bright, the wonderful, the loving, and pull us back to, seems like sort of like an attachment or gravity that toward the negatives.
It's trying to keep you safe. It's trying to keep you safe, right?
So it's still coming from here, trying to protect our body, basically.
Your body and yourself. I mean, your mind as well, right? To keep you safe from, I mean, in the old days, it was lions and tigers and warring tribes and so on. Today, it's fear of embarrassment, fear of failure, fear of shame. It's a different kind of fear that it's trying to protect you from.
Logical
Yeah. I mean, I'm not worried
fear.
about someone attacking me physically, but I might be worried about screwing up this podcast today and being ashamed of it, right?
You don't have to worry about that because we will
Thank you.
do a
But you know what I
beautiful
mean? You know what
post
I mean.
edit.
You
I
know what
know
I
what you
mean.
mean. Yeah. I think ultimately it's a fear of judgment and externalization or exile from the communities where we feel like is the community that will help us or support us, will where we belong. We have this fear of being kind of left
Ostracized.
behind.
Yes.
Yes, ostracized,
Rejected.
rejected,
Yeah.
left behind.
Yes. And no one wants to be left behind, right? It's the saddest thing in the world.
Yeah. And currently there's this like rampant feeling of loneliness. And even though we are supposed to be closer together with all those medias and technologies and platforms and communities, and what role does this like self-negative talk play in the process of potentially alienize us in this supposedly to be hyper connected modern world?
Well, I think there's certainly an epidemic of loneliness right now in America and probably in the world. Obviously, COVID exacerbated it. But I think that, the fear of making a mistake, the fear of not being perfect, the fear of being vulnerable makes us hold back and not have authentic relationships with other people because they might laugh at me or they might think I'm said something inappropriate or have a bad thought. I mean, I have found, I learned a long time ago that if there's something you're ashamed of, if you bring it out into the light, it loses its power. It loses its power. So it takes energy to hold something in and be ashamed of it.
How do we bring the shame into the light? By verbalizing it, by
Absolutely.
writing it, by talking about it, by
From my perspective, it's not enough to talk to yourself about it. It's got to be sharing it with people. Because as long as you're talking to yourself, you might worry that someone might find out, right? But if
yeah,
you say out loud, then it's out there. It's out in the world. When I was maybe
back
10
to the
years,
universe.
yep. When I was 10 or 11, my brother's college roommate came home with him for the weekend. And the fellow sexually molested me. And I didn't say a word about it for probably 40 years. And I was doing a workshop. I had to teach harassment-free workplace training to like 50 different offices of a global law firm. And in one of the sessions, I talked about it. I have no idea why, but it just came out. Ever since it's came out, I've been talking about it because I was somehow thought that it was my fault. I was a little girl. I was a little girl. Didn't know how to get out of the room. The interesting thing is, once I got out of the room, we lived in the woods, and my dad had taught me about all the plants. I took him out in the woods with me, and I picked up poison ivy and I rubbed it all over myself, arms, legs, face, and of course I got poison ivy all over. And I realized when I started talking about it, I think I did that to make myself unattractive to him, so he would never do to me again what he'd done to me in my brother's bedroom. But once I talked about it, it lost all its power. I didn't have to be ashamed of it anymore.
Thank you for sharing this.
And I vividly remember my mom having me in the bathtub, washing me down with Epsom salts to dry out the poison ivy. I mean, that's what I remember. But I mean, my mother was an amazing woman. If I had told her, she would have acted immediately. My father would have killed the guy. But I somehow thought that it was my fault that that happened. How could I be so stupid as to go into Peter's bedroom with this guy and not think something bad was going to happen? But I was so naive. So naive.
Yeah. And sometimes we really tend to blame ourselves first. Whatever things that happens, we always tend to blame ourselves.
Yes, we do.
And maybe because we see ourselves as a sovereign being and we wanted to take responsibility for us being a human being in this place. So if anything happens, it must be my fault.
Right.
Some people may habitually blame others. So it's
Other thing, right?
as,
Right.
as a way to save themselves. So
Exactly. Exactly.
this sense of self-responsibility and the tendency to self-blame is coming from a good place to be responsible. And also, I think I relate being a woman. Sometimes, if there's something happening to us, we feel like, oh, I look too pretty. I need to make myself look uglier so people don't find ourselves attractive and we don't become prey. Because sometimes being a woman does kind of imply that we are prey,
Vulnerable. Yep.
vulnerable, right? And so we tend to blend ourselves. And I remember I have a friend who went through like similar experiences of that, and she shared with me, and it stayed with me even though I did not go through that. And I can feel what she felt, and I feel like as if I went through that as well. And that left a mark in my mind. So
Yes.
when I was going out, when I go through life, go through school, I usually tend to cover myself up. So I would wear this like outrageous big suits or like uh outfit just to make myself look more like a boy or a
Yep.
guy,
Yep.
and just like look like sloppy just a little bit. So especially when I was walking outside at night, I would put a
Yep.
hoodie up, pretend
Yep.
that I'm like a guy. I'm just like, no. And that always stayed with me as a way to like
Yep. Protect yourself.
self-preserve and
Yeah.
protect.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think this like negative talk does come from a good place to like protect ourselves. And however, without control and without this mitigation, without this confrontation and change, it comes to really damage our psyche. And if we are working in teams, if we're leading teams, like you mentioned at the beginning, it really kind of like permeates through, like your inner conversation really kind of gets synced up
It
by
leaks out.
people
It
that
leaks
you
out.
serve.
Yeah.
Yeah. And somehow we can hear, like, we don't know what the science behind it, but we can kind of potentially hear the inner
Yep.
dialogue someone is having.
Yep.
So that comes to the confrontation, the second C of the whole process. So confrontation, you use the word like
Interrogate.
interrogate. How do we interrogate or maybe investigate when those negative voices come in a very in a because when you speak the word interrogate, that some image comes to my mind with like a detective trying to
Okay.
like force the victim to speak the truth, and there's some violence being used and all that like harshness, hurtfulness come, and that feels very painful. How can we investigate that negative inner talk in a very loving, compassionate, and caring, and just like cozy and way instead?
You know, a colleague of mine, her name is Joelle Crawford, and she's brilliant. She's a speaker, she's a writer, she's a coach, and she has a dig folder. Dig stands for damn, I'm good.
Damn, I'm good.
And every time she gets a nice note or something good happens to her, she drops it in her dig folder. So when she's having some negative self-talk, she pulls out her dig folder and she reads about all the positive things that she's done. In fact, I was coaching a client yesterday who was feeling kind of down. I said, wait a minute, let's talk about 10 things that you've succeeded at recently. She wrote them down. We talked about them and she wrote them down. I'm like, all right, when you're feeling like you're not up to the task, look at that list, Danielle. Look at that list. So asking yourself, wait a minute, is that true? Where's it coming from? Haven't I been successful before? Let's make that list of things, right? Let's talk about all the things that I do well.
So maybe what we can do is to always keep a digital and a physical folder,
Yep. Yep.
and write maybe in a colorful sheet
Yep.
of paper and say, hey, today I've completed this one, I've done this one successfully, someone had really good comments and feedback
Exactly.
on this one,
Yep.
and I feel really invigorated when I'm having a conversation with Suzy today for 45 minutes. Woohoo! Or I have been editing this episode, and I really enjoyed it. Time really flies, so I went
Yep.
into my flow zone.
Yep.
And when we think about it, it really a lot. They're like,
Yep.
probably 10 is not even enough. Like we can get like 100 if
Exactly.
we want to.
Exactly. When I coach a new client, I often do a 360 interview with their stakeholders. So I interview people and I record the sessions, and then I create a report. But I'll pull out 10 or 20 really positive, powerful comments. And I write them like I make a wallet card for that person. I say, and I laminate it and I send it to them. And I say, when you're feeling down, pull it out of your wallet and read these things, because this is what your stakeholders are saying about you.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Because we all have moments where we feel like we're not enough, right? So I say, wait a minute, I am enough. Let's look at what people said about me.
That's beautiful. And also, as we kind of figure out the reason behind it, there could be a line. Well, can we overdo it? Can we put too much attention to what I'm really good at? And then somehow, when I really dig through the reasons why this thing was not done correctly, or I did make a mistake, but I end up saying, oh, I think I'm pretty good. Like, how can we tread the beautiful balance between one is to really prop ourselves up, the other side is really being authentic and being detached and being objective and say, hey, yes, I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, in this particular scale, I'm currently at 2. They're like 8 more 2. How do we
Well,
balance that?
I think when something doesn't go well, you've got to take it as a learning moment, right? And say to yourself,
Yes.
okay, I didn't do a good job on this training today, but I'm going to do this, this, and this. So the next time I have to deliver the session, I'm going to be better. So it's not, if I bomb, I'm not going to say, but forget about that. I did all these other things well. What can I learn from that experience so that I won't make the mistake again? So I'll be better prepared, for instance.
Yeah. And say that we will be able to grow what we set the goal to grow, because look at all this, like, damn, I'm really good at that.
Exactly. Exactly.
So harness harness that into confident energies and
Yep.
actionable energies for us to really grow.
And it's also important that once you've processed something, to let it go. I mean, one of my favorite pieces of the book is the story of the two monks, and they're traveling on a long and arduous journey to a distant monastery in search of enlightenment. And along the way, come to a fast flowing river. It's got a strong current, and they see a woman standing there. She's distressed. She knows she can't get across without their help. As soon as she sees the monks, she approaches them and asks them to help her get across the river. And she explains that she's afraid of being swept away by the current. Without hesitation, one of the monks picks her up and puts her on his back and carries her across the river and gently places her on the opposite side of the bank. She thanks the monk, and she continues on her way, and the monks continue on their way. But they walk for several hours in silence. And finally, the second monk says to the first monk in a tone of disbelief, "Brother, we took a vow of celibacy. We're not even allowed to touch a woman, yet you carried the woman across the river." The monk who helped the woman replied, "Brother, I put her down on the other side of the bank hours ago. You brought her all the way with you to the monastery. When it's over, let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Once you've processed a negative experience, let it go."
Sometimes the negative energies can be so addictive. Just like when we watch movies or when we watch TV series, and a lot of the so-called like engaging shows have this underlying layer of suspense. Maybe some taps into unpredictability, and some really taps into this conflict. And I think the world is playing out this way, is all the conflicts are being highlighted, just like the two walls. One is the
Yep,
positive, one
yep.
is the negative. Somehow I feel like maybe there's more research to be done. Like there is this like innate addiction to this conflict. And it feels like the conflict, especially the negative ones, really keeps us hooked in a way. So in the example of the two monks, it's easier said than done. It's easier said, let's let it go. However, somehow something in here just keeps us ruminating of all those negative rather than the positive experiences. And how do we truly let go? break the cycle of constant conflicts.
Journaling can help. Like writing down what you're thinking about. Breathing can help. Meditating can help. Walking outside in nature can help. And being present, right? If you're going to take a walk in the
Present.
woods, listen for the birds. Look at the beautiful green of the leaves. Look at the solidness of the rocks and get all those other thoughts out of your head. But you
What
have
if
to
all
work,
those thoughts come back again?
then breathe again. I mean, mindfulness is so powerful and being present is so powerful to just sit and breathe. And you're going to have thoughts that come in, but you know what? As soon as they come, say, leave. I'm being mindful and just sit and breathe.
So it's like a muscle.
It is a muscle.
Letting go feels like it's a release.
It
However,
is a release.
actually, in order to let go, is a muscle that
It is.
actively releases.
Because when you do that deep belly breathing, your body is saying to your mind, it's okay, you're safe. It's okay, you're safe. It's okay, you're safe now. And the other thing I would say is that those negative thoughts, they are hardwired, right? They come from a place of survival. So there's nothing wrong with them, but some strategies to keep them from controlling your life are useful. Because what you think impacts how you feel, which impacts how you act, right? This triangle.
Yeah. And you mentioned about one strategy of journaling. What if someone feel it's unsafe to journal? Because whenever you write it down, it's a physical thing, so people can look into it, and especially closed ones. Whenever we put something tangible in there, there's always a risk of being seen and being judged and losing the safe space. So for folks who don't feel safe to journal, how should they how should they do alternatively that similar to the process of journaling?
And their phones aren't safe either, right?
Mm.
Probably not. Well, you know what? What could work? Do you know what an etch-a-sketch is?
Etches, sketches, no?
It was a toy when I was a kid. You would write in it. You'd have a pencil, and it was sand that had mica in it. So you'd write, and you can shake it away, or else they could journal and then burn it or throw it away. I have a client that I'm working with, and she went through a really hard time. She had all these notes from all these horrible conversations. I'm like, you've got to build this big fire and have ritual and burn those things. And as you're burning them, be smudging the house with sage, right? But get rid of them, get rid of them, get rid of them, and ritualize it.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I think ritual plays a very interesting role
Absolutely.
in terms of especially breaking the cycles.
Absolutely. I've also encouraged her to smudge her house and herself. Look at sage and just smudge everything, including herself.
I want to actually share with you about this. I have a physical sage, but I think this one is more accessible. It's like a sage flavored like inserts.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I will burn this in the.
I have the big like rods for walking around.
Well, for our audiences who may not believe in the cleaning, the power, and for sages, that's okay. It's just our little common
But you know
shared
what? Try it
interest,
because it couldn't hurt and it might help.
right? Or the just the experience that you would
Exactly.
like to experience.
Exactly.
Wonderful. So, in our previous conversation, you also mentioned something about visualization. So we talked about like journaling, we talked about like rituals, we talked about just have this muscles to like just let go and touching our belly and breathe. And there's also a methodology that you've mentioned in the previous conversation about like visualing a bowl of lights, something about visualization. Can you remind me of like how
Sure.
visually can we let go?
Sure. You can visualize several things. I mean, you can visualize the experience with a positive outcome rather than tripping on your way to the stage and falling down on your face, walking smoothly and getting there. But you can also visualize this beam of light that's shining down on you. It's bringing you grace and power and love and peace. Let that beam of light lighten your heart and your soul. It's filled with all
I'm
good
feeling the
things,
warmth.
all good things. The other thing you can do, by the way, is to engage an accountability partner, someone that you can talk to about these things. It will help you use the 3C method, right? When you're having a negative thought, to catch it, to confront it and find out if it's actually true, or if it's just your monster speaking up, then changing it. Have a friend that you can talk to about these things. The interesting thing is this notion of a monster came from someone I was coaching. And we were talking one day and she said, Suzy, I've got this monster in my mind. I'm like, oh my God, that's the metaphor, right? We all have a monster. And yet you think that there's a monster under your bed. And when you look under the bed, it's just a dust bunny. It's nothing. It's nothing.
Yeah, sometimes we tend to exaggerate, especially negative experience. We tend to like overplay the negatives and downplay the positives.
Yep.
As if sometimes the positives are like boring, everything's
Yep.
going smoothly, is like, yeah. But when things are going off our
Yep.
hand, there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of things, so it's blown out. It's like out of proportion and consumes all of our attention. And wherever our attention goes, our feelings follows, and all this like monster starts to take us into captivity.
The National Science Foundation published a really interesting statistic. The average person has between 12,000 and 60,000 thoughts a day, and 80% of them are negative. 80% of them are negative. So if you've got 60,000 thoughts a day, that means 48,000 negative thoughts every day. And they tend to be repetitive. They tend to go on a loop, right? That inner spin brings out the worst in us. And again, it's because we're hardwired for danger. We're hardwired for being on the lookout for bad things to
Feels like the
survive.
way to flip that tendency is to rewire ourselves somewhat to thrive, to be happy in order to thrive, rather than to be fearful in order to be thrive.
And the interesting, Gianni, is that our brains are plastic. There's plasticity in your brain. So we could actually change the neural pathways that our thoughts follow. So by using the 3C method, by catching it and confronting it and changing it, over time, you're going to change that pathway. It takes time. Of course, it takes time, but typically 60 plus days. But with consistent practice, you can get there. It doesn't mean that you'll never have a negative thought again, but it means when you have it, you're going to catch it and confront it
From it and
and
change
change
it
it. And you're going to pull out your dig folder with all those things that you're good at
and visualize and do
and
a
visualize
ceremony to break it.
and have that beam of light bring you love and grace and gratitude and joy and warmth. Because we
And
deserve to be our best
condition,
selves. We deserve to be our
yeah,
best selves every day.
and condition ourselves to be more consumed by the positives, by the light, by the happiness, by what could come out, what could be the best outcome out of this, to get attracted by the positives, to get consumed more by the positives.
One of the things that helps me is when I'm worried about something. My someone years ago taught me this. She said, "Okay, Suzy, if that happens, what's the worst thing that could happen?" And I thought to myself, not really very bad, right? For instance, if I was worried about this podcast, if I totally blew it, the worst thing that could happen is you wouldn't show it. That's not so
Yeah,
bad,
and
right?
we could do another
We could do a
one.
redo, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But if you could articulate the worst thing that might happen, you usually find out that it's not very bad. And that worry goes away. That worry just evaporates. And of course, then you ask yourself, what's the best thing that could happen? That's much more encouraging, inspiring, exciting.
And I think if every single one of us is able to do this, then the collective narratives will shift from a blame, critical, negative to a more of an encouraging, provide space, compassionate, and loving.
And
So
grace
it
filled.
and graceful, yeah. And even if people fail, then collectively we give them space. We give them
Exactly.
space to fail. We collectively give them space to heal. We collectively give them space to grow and to evolve. And that's going to be a very benign, compassionate, and loving collective consciousness that we will be living with. That's just
Exactly.
heaven on earth.
Exactly. Exactly.
One person, one conversation, one thought, one change at a time.
Exactly. And if you practice it over, I mean, it's simple, but it's not easy, right? But you consistently practice catching it, confronting it, and asking if it's true, then changing it to a more positive narrative. Over time, that will be your habit.
Just by imagining it, it feels good. Feels
Doesn't it
happy.
make you feel light? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And so for our audience, you as you're listening to this conversation and see if there's any negative ruminations happening right now in your mind and trying to follow Susie's suggestion of the 3C. So first, catch it. Second, confront it with love and with compassion, and then change it with maybe a mini ritual, with a self-talk, with a visualization of light, whatever that works for you, and see if that helps. Maybe just a few minutes. I think that would do it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Let go. Let go. Beautiful. So, when Susie was about 11 years old, or somewhere around that time, what did Susie enjoy creating or playing so much that time disappeared for her?
Loved to play out in the woods. We had a stream behind our house, and I would go back there and look for tadpoles and put my feet in the water. It was cold and fresh, and just enjoy the trees. I was a great tree climber. So I'd climb the trees and see what I could see. I could stay out in the woods all day long and just enjoy being out in nature. And my dad had taught me a lot of things that were in the woods. So it was just fun and interesting and engaging. And I would follow the stream. And two neighbors' house down, there was like a waterfall. And I'd walk down to the Carabace's property and look at the waterfall. I never went in it because it was very, very steep. But it was fun. It was beautiful to be in the woods, just freeing, really freeing. And I love to be outside today.
Take a walk into the woods. One of the most beautiful things we can ever do for ourselves, our happiness. Beautiful. And according, there are some research. I'm diving into it. Saying that the forest bathing, just the pure action of exposing ourselves in the forest, surrounded by trees and nature and animals and bugs and water, helps us to restore our energies. And there's a lot of retreat things happening in the forest. So I'll
Absolutely.
continue. I'll continue searching and researching on this. So, what do you think is childlike vitality mean to you?
Children are so innocent. They're so positive. They're so excited because everything is new and different, and they're filled with curiosity. And children ask why about 1,000 times a day because they want to know things. They want to know their world. And it's just, to me, it's magical to see a child just running around and asking a lot of questions and wondering about everything they see, right? And I love it when parents or friends and colleagues encourage them versus saying, you ask too many questions. You have to encourage them because that's a beautiful thing, childlike wonder, childlike imagination.
Yeah. And what does that mean to a grown-up adults? Like we have grown up and we're no longer kids anymore. And how does that mean to us? Like childlike wonder and childlike vitality and that sense of the beingness mean to us as an adult, as a leader, doing serious things, creating products, services, leading teams, and leading ourselves, leading families, and taking on responsibilities for the society, for the world, for the community, like all that. Like, what does that mean? What role does that play? Do we still have a space for that?
I think it's essential. I think it's essential. I ask a million questions. I'm curious about everything still to this day. And I think by being filled with wonder and being curious and thinking about possibilities, I think we see things that we wouldn't ordinarily see if we just cut to the chase and have a solution. To say in a group, I wonder what would happen if we tried this or tried that, I love that. I wonder what would happen if. It's a great question with a team.
How would that potentially shift the current way of working, or how would that, if we speak in what the world is expecting to hear, how would that contribute to the outcomes that we are trying to create?
From my perspective, in a very positive way, because if we can expand our thinking, we'll imagine things that if we're just head down and wrote, we will never encounter. And some of the best inventions of the world have been through brainstorming, right? letting one thought lead to another thought, to lead to another thought, to another thought, and all of a sudden you've got a whole new idea that you would ever have thought about if you didn't make the space and the time to build on each other's ideas, to wonder about what would happen if.
That's beautiful. And I think that comes back to the easy method. I
Yes, it
think it would
does.
be good to ask, what if? What if it's not the worst thing that's happened?
Right.
What if it's the best thing that happens? So it helps us to turn the switch
Yep. Yep.
more easily. So, what do you think is your magic? However, you tend to understand or interpret the idea of magic. So, what do you think is your magic that gives you anchoring, gives you strength, gives you resilience?
I think my magic is having a mindset of abundance rather than scarcity. I am so grateful for all the gifts I've been given. And I feel like no matter what happens, I'll find a way through. So I think this gift of gratitude, I think, is my magic, being always grateful for everything that I have and being confident that everything's going to work out, because it always does. It may not work out the way I imagine it would, but it's always for the best.
Always for the best.
Because if I take a left turn when I didn't expect it, I might end up in a wonderful place. And if I end up lost, I'll find my way back.
We
I've
lost
always,
for a reason.
yes,
For a
exactly,
purpose.
exactly.
That's beautiful. What is one simple action that you practice daily to keep your magic alive?
I think about all the things I'm grateful for. And I think about all the people I love. A friend of mine who I love dearly, before she gets out of bed in the morning, she says 10 things that she's grateful for. And I think that's an amazing practice. But for me, being great, I say to whoever I'm with all day long, I feel so blessed. I feel so grateful. I mean, today it's not a beautiful day, but yesterday's a beautiful day. And I've got an amazing dog, a great husband, great friends, great work. By the way, Julian is one of my favorite people on the planet. Julian, who connected us, I love him.
And thank you, Julian, for connecting us. That's beautiful, Suzy. It's such a releasing conversation with you. At the same time, validating, at the same time, loving. And I hope our audience are able to feel that, to shower this energy
I do too.
throughout their day.
As I was thinking about this and preparing for it, I really wasn't worried, because you're such a gracious, grace-filled, loving, wonderful person, Gianni. You are. That I knew it would be calm and easy to talk with you. Not scary at all.
The goal of this conversation is to serve as a spa for our guests
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
our audience, because we need more spa moments.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
So good to have you, Suzy.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Gianni.
you.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today. And for our audiences, if you want to connect with Suzy to explore the topics of how we can consistently let go with all the negative thoughts and welcome and being showered with this positive yet objective thoughts, it would be good to connect with her, especially if you wanted to lead a team, build a business. A lot of audiences are building businesses and building futures through our products and services. So that would be a good conversation to have, or at least something to explore and open our mind to.
Thank you. And I would love to talk with them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Suzy.